Welcome, everyone, to the captive audience. Fitting a live show in today. Just had a really super busy day, but wanted to bring you up to speed on some of the headlines that I've been watching here. As you might have heard last week, by the way, it is the 23rd of February, 2026. Um, and last week, there were a bunch of crazy things passed in the state legislature. There's at least 13 bills that would offer so-called immigrants protection. And doesn't mention that that immigrants who are here legally don't need protection, and much less do criminals who are here illegally. And but that's what they're doing. They're just passing a zillion bills, and they're expecting that they're going to tell the federal government what it can and cannot do on immigration, which is an absurdity because it's a fundamental um, issue of federalism in which the federal government is the one who has this specific power, and states cannot go and interfere with it or criminalize the agents and officers of that are carrying out their duty federally. Um, they cannot criminalize that activity or regulate it in any way. But they're going to try anyway because grandstanding is all they got. Well, actually, it's not all they got. They can do a lot of harm. So um, the uh, the ruling Democrats in Salem also have passed a bill that is meant to steal the tax breaks for individuals who are, um, let me see if I can open this up here, who are going to receive several different tax breaks under the One Big Beautiful Bill. And the Democrats hate that because they hate President Trump, but they're all working class tax breaks or business tax breaks. And in this case, hi Lori, the one that they're, one of the ones that they're targeting here, according to Senator Anthony Broadman, is it's a Democrat senator who's leading this charge on the Revenue Committee. It eliminates the tax write-off for car loan interest. Now, as you know, billionaires really need to write off car loan interest. That's super important to them. But your average person, not so much, apparently, according to Anthony Broadman. Um, Congress would allow taxpayers to write off up to $10,000 in car loan interest from their federal taxable income if the car was purchased in 2025 and assembled in the U.S. And there are a whole bunch of vehicles to which that applies. In fact, it applies to Kias and Hyundais, for example, in addition to, of course, the big three automakers, Ford, Chrysler, and GM. And it would apply to Teslas even. And the car loan interest, uh, it's significant, especially up front when you purchase a new vehicle. The exemption is phased out after $100,000 in taxable income for single filers and $200,000 for joint filers. So, so there's a ceiling on it. And as you'll notice, neither one of those numbers says billions. It doesn't even come close. And, uh, in some respects, $100,000 doesn't go very far in the Portland metro area nowadays with the taxes and other expenses that exist. And so this is not, and that's the ceiling, right, for single filers. So we're not talking about uber wealthy. We're talking about regular folks. And the state of Oregon, the Democrats, they want to take it back. They also want to eliminate tax exceptions for qualified stock transactions, and they want, which relates to spurring business investment, particularly small business investment in the state of Oregon. And they also want to eliminate the deduction that businesses can make they can write off the cost of new equipment and machinery in 1 year, as opposed to across multiple years. Huge positive effect. And so this disconnect from federal taxes is going to wallop a bunch of businesses and a bunch of people who were just trying to purchase automobiles. And of course, the Democrats know how to take a good economy and turn it into a super crappy one. Every Democrat voted for the measure except Clackamas County Democrat Mark Meek. All Republicans opposed the bill, and and so they now the bill, which did pass because it only needed a simple majority. It's not considered a tax increase per the Oregon Constitution. It now heads to the State House, and it would generate. It would fill $350 million in a budget hole that they, or sorry, it would still have a budget hole of $350 million of overspending that exists, but it would take this away from working class Oregonians. So keep your eye out for that. What else is going on? There's the Tina Kotek's Poverty Act, the $4.5 billion gift to was described as the big three. It's really more like a poverty act if you live in a city that has allowed data centers into your boundaries. And there is an old saying in politics, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. For thousands of Oregonians watching their school budgets shrink and their electricity bills skyrocket, that proverb is becoming a survival strategy. She's championing the bill, she says, that she calls a prosperity roadmap. But local residents are seeing something more sinister. From the balcony of the State House, the governor presents herself as a Roman senator, sipping wine of corporate site readiness while watching the rabble of local fire districts and school boards fight for scraps left behind by multi-billion-dollar data centers. They get tax breaks. So this article actually claims that she's being what Democrats accuse of being a Trump Republican. And saying that nobody has the balls to call her out on it. Well, looks like at least one outlet did, and that's the Hillsborough Herald. So they're going to extend the free property tax enterprise zone sections in this bill, and it's kind of a giveaway to the data centers and the massive AI advanced manufacturers that are now merging in the state. Now, on the one hand, we like to have advanced manufacturing in the state. On the other hand, they keep telling us they're running out of money and don't have enough money for everything. And yet, these are data centers that are already saving $457 million with the tax breaks they have. And now it's going to rise another 90 million. And of course, this is revenue that won't come into the local areas that these things are located in. So anyway, this is where people in Hillsborough are kind of getting worked up, to say the least. And so on the one hand, they're taking money away from working class people. On the other hand, they're kind of handing it over in these deals to some very large businesses, and so we're keeping an eye on this. A couple of the other alerts here that are important for you to know about. So there's kind of an action alert that was issued today by the Taxpayer Association of Oregon. The 35-day session is down to its last 2 weeks. Thank the Lord. The two things that you need to act on: call your lawmaker to stop the 2 kicker theft bills. And then 2, stop lawmakers from tinkering with the death tax by helping us get the Abolish Oregon Death Tax petition on the ballot. And so there is a petition to abolish the Oregon death tax. If that gets on the ballot, that kind of forces Democrats who didn't want to compromise on reforming the death tax at all to consider it because they might end up finding it abolished actually on the ballot. Should there be enough signatures to get it on there? And there is a petition circulating right now. Uh, there is a bill, Senate Bill 1511, that would lower the death tax for some but raise it for others. But it's really a flawed, fix. It's a Tina Kotek style fix. And so the best solution really here is to get this petition on the ballot. And let me see if I can, I'll just post this here, but then let me come back also to the, there's the bailout for the Moda Center, but I think people are really going to have a problem with that one. That one's going to hang around Tina Kotek's neck because it's a lot of money, Lawmakers only have 13 days left to pass the 2 kicker theft bills, and we almost have it killed. So urge your senators and state representatives to vote no on House Bill 4125 and Senate Joint Resolution 201. SJR 201 would put something on the ballot to essentially alter the kicker. If you don't know your lawmakers, they have a link here that you can go find them. So really, we're just coming down to the final hours of the bills that can pass and the bills that can't pass in this session. And if you can get out there and put a stop to this through just making a few phone calls, it could be very, very wise. Basically, the kicker theft bills, they want to redirect the revenue from the kicker and split it with you. Even though it's all supposed to go to you, they want to split it with you because they're going to go halvesies with you. They're going to take half of it away. And I don't think anybody truly sees it that way, but this is how they're portraying it. They want to channel it into things they say are good causes in the budget, but then you know what happens. They don't really do a good job with the money, or that it's fungible, so they just take the money that was supposed to go to, say, I don't know, education or roads or fighting wildfires, and then just move that over to DEI programs. And that's what this whole game is about, really. So get on that one and take action. By the way, over the weekend, or last Friday, the Senate bill to move the gas tax vote from November to May had to be delayed. And it's an ongoing saga because they actually don't have enough Democrats supporting it. That's the problem that they're facing right now. And so it says that Senate Bill 1599, which was near the top of the Senate's schedule on Friday, they moved it because apparently Democrats repeatedly decided to vote on less controversial bills as chamber leaders appear to scramble to hash out a deal with Republicans who have already taken an afternoon to walk out and show them that they might just actually delay this whole thing, possibly beyond the point where it could be put on the May ballot. So, and as you know, it's the increase in the state gas tax, it's sizable increases in vehicle registration and titling fees, and a doubling of the payroll tax that funds public transit, which has seen a plummeting ridership. This won't do anything to resolve that. It'll just spend more money on something that less people are using. So they hold 18 of the Senate's 30 seats, but missing that day was Senator Solman. She's from Hillsborough. She was sick. And then Mark Meek has made it clear he would not support the bill. And I think we just talked about him a little while ago. He said it takes us in the wrong direction, and it risks pulling attention away from the work we should be doing in this legislative session, rebuilding public trust and finding a bipartisan path forward on transportation that Oregonians can support. He shouldn't have voted for it in the first place, but now we're right back where he's starting to put up a fight of some kind. We'll see if he follows through or not. And so this is what has happened as of the end of last week. So let me post that. Kathy Peterson. Oh, sorry. Oh, I see. Yes. Well, welcome to the show, Kathy. We really appreciate it. Along with Bobby and Pam and Lori. Thanks for jumping in, guys. And sorry for the erratic time start on this. But I just posted that. And then I happened to see this article in the Oregon Catalyst, which does show that there's a compelling reason why the Constitution might actually stop the move by the legislature to move the gas tax vote. And it's pointed out here that there's some legal analysis that goes back well into the past, but says in 1902, the voters of Oregon voted the referendum into our Constitution by an 11-1 margin. They gave the legislature as an explicit message: when you try to legislate for a particular interest or you exercise partisan power like a machine, we, the people, will step in front of you with a referendum, move aside, we will vote as we determine whether or not the bill will become law. That is what the words of the Oregon Constitution mean. And so they say, well, look, there's 250,000 people who signed Referendum 302. It's said on it, and it shows the picture, the date of the general election on the petition. And so they're, technically, if they can do whatever they want just by passing a law, then they could conceivably move the election to 10 years in the future, right? So why do they get to move it up when it suggests here that they shouldn't have any power to do that at all? I have seen that there's a history to this, and it has been done before, and that might actually, unfortunately, be cited by the Kate Brown, Tina Kotek appointed judiciary when they adjudicate this. So let's stay tuned on that. Oregon Democrat supermajority has rejected a bill to provide care for abortion survivors. This is known as the Born Alive Act at the federal level, and here in Oregon, the pro-abortion lawmakers here voted against bringing a bill to the House floor. They didn't even want to bring it to the House floor. It would ensure that babies born alive during failed abortions are treated with the same standards of care as newborns delivered under usual circumstances. So in other words, it's the finish that baby off policy that Democrats really love. And Court Boyce, representative who we've had on here many times, made a motion on February 16th to bring it to the floor, and so that the full House could vote on it. And he introduced Oregon abortion survivor Amy Miles to the House during the courtesies of the beginning of the session. Amy Miles was born alive in the 1980s at 28 weeks in Ashland, Oregon, in a failed abortion. And now she's a wife and a mother, and she speaks out for many of the babies who survived abortions every year. But lawmakers voted on the motion with 34 Democrats voting against the bill and 22 Republicans voting in favor. Included in those voting against the bill was Cyrus Javadi, a former Republican who became a Democrat last year and renounced his pro-life affiliation. So in other words, he lied to the voters when he ran as a Republican. And so, and apparently he is the state representative representing Amy Miles, the very person who survived a failed abortion. So it didn't move out of committee. It stuck there. And you can read the rest of this, but this is something that supermajorities in the general population actually think that there should be babies that survive an abortion should receive medical care, because they do survive sometimes, as we've seen, and just like anyone else born alive. But And lots of people who consider themselves pro-choice draw the line at this and say, but we should assist an infant that's born alive, regardless of what circumstance led to them being born, or what was done to them before that. So it's hard to say what's going to happen with stuff like this, but I do think that the clear contrast between the parties is there now. Everybody can see it, and this is just another example. Let's see here. So I'm looking for this. So this two public defense nonprofits have been allowed to limit caseloads. An Oregon judge rules and saying that they can't be forced to increase their caseloads. And it says that, there's this thing that's described as a public defense crisis, even though there are more public defenders than there are prosecutors, and they have the same number of cases, right? That's by definition, right? But this Clackamas County judge ruled that attorneys don't need to take cases that would stretch them supposedly beyond their capacity. Now, of course, we all know that from reporting that was done over the past couple of years that they don't even account for what they are truly doing with the funding that is supplied to them. And some very large law firms are making enormous sums of money and not accounting for just how many hours they're actually dedicating to the caseloads they have to defend. By the way, an indigent public defense crisis, could that be caused also potentially by the state being flooded with indigents? I think that's entirely possible. So would you say that, for instance, somebody who spends their entire days doing fentanyl and living in a tent in downtown Portland might be an indigent, might actually state that they do not, when they commit a crime, and many of them are committing crimes, let's just not even sugarcoat this. Could it be that they would not have the resources to secure legal counsel for themselves? If there's a bunch of them doing this and they're being arrested over and over and over again, and with our lax bail and pretrial release laws in Oregon, they're going out, getting released, and going committing another crime. That sounds like something that would overwhelm a public defense system or an entire judicial system. Anyway, this will be appealed, but right now it's kind of being spun in the media as the people who are supposed to be fixing this problem are big meanies, and they're not allowed to demand more of public defense firms. So, what can I say? The governor has plowed enormous sums of money into this over the past couple of years. They've formed a board that's supposed to commission that's responsible for making sure that defense counsel is provided for everybody, and they still cannot do it. And they failed to fix the real problems of accountability on the part of the firms that are supposed to be providing public defense. So stay tuned on this. I think it is a meaningful part of the Constitution, but they've also got people being provided lawyers who actually that don't qualify under the constitutional requirement they keep citing. And I know there's specific examples of this I can give, where they entitle people to any business with that. Anyway, it's not an indigent situation. It's now a new entitlement that now is, of course, being overwhelmed by demand. Interesting. Portland City Councilor Loretta Smith, after a really, really raucous protest, anti-ICE protest in the city council chambers, brought forward a proposal that she wanted city councilors to be allowed to openly carry firearms while conducting city business. Now, she's kind of walked it back. But the point I guess she was making is that, she doesn't feel safe, and she should feel safe, and she needs to be able to protect herself. And apparently, whoever's supposed to be protecting her or the people in City Hall from the individuals that are engaging in threatening and violent activity, not just making their voice heard, um, uh, it is um, they're not doing enough to protect these guys, and so she wants to be able to protect herself. Anyway, they don't do anything about the mostly peaceful protesters. But Smith wrote on Facebook that the protesters who cried at the city council chambers and shouted at elected officials, including from an area in front of their seats that's not meant for public access, were quote not peaceful unquote, and described the incident as quote mini insurrection unquote. Now that should be reported all over the country, and if you don't feel like you can be safe doing that kind of work as a city councilor, then and no one will rise to your defense, then that's actually the same as what all of us citizens out here are experiencing. I don't know. Yeah, they were Antifa, of course they were, um, but I don't know if any real action is going to come from this, because she kind of backed off the proposal and got heavily criticized for wanting to be able to protect her own safety from people that the city and the court and or the city and the police would not do anything about, and just let them run roughshod over the city council chambers. So there you go, another government failure. Um, but maybe someone's seeing the light about the Second Amendment. Editorial in YourOregonNews.com: Oregonians with stolen wages may not get help. The Bureau of Labor and Industry is warning that due to a large increase in significant backlog of claims, BOLI currently does not have the resources to investigate all the complaints. Yet, BOLI says on their website, Oregon laws protect you at work. If your employer is doing something wrong, we can help. But they can't. And this article, unfortunately, stops short of explaining how we got to this. They said the backlog, by the way, might last until 2029, which means like if you didn't get paid by an employer and you file a bully complaint, you might not actually have your case resolved for 3 years, which is just, I mean, seriously. Hopefully, nobody really needs that money when they get abused by an employer. But and by the way, the current labor commissioner, Christina Stevenson, who I believe is going to be running for re-election, requested an audit from the Secretary of State. And the answer that she got in that audit, which I've seen, is that these problems all trace back to mismanagement by the prior BOLI commissioner. And let me tell you who that was. The prior BOLI commissioner was the current congresswoman from the 4th Congressional District, Val Hoyle. Very clear in the audit. And I don't blame Christina Stevenson for calling this information out and seeking an audit to reveal that, because they're going to blame her. But actually, a combination of the state legislature and the mismanagement that traces its origin back to Val Hoyle, a truly corrupt and failed leader, needs to be called out and known by everyone, because people like that shouldn't be serving in any office whatsoever, much less a more powerful position that influences federal policy. So stay tuned. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about Val Hoyle, but let me see if I can find this here. Here we go. So here's the press release by Val Hoyle's opponent, Monique Despain. I'm putting it in the feed, which actually calls this out and specifically cites quotes from the audit. It says here, a massive backlog of wage and hour violation claims was caused by poor management, unclear policies that, quote, started or worsened under the prior leadership, unquote. Prior leadership, Val Hoyle. And The audit made clear that money alone could not fix Bowley's problems because many of the challenges stem from years of neglect and mismanagement that occurred under Hoyle's leadership. A failure to maintain basic agency operations have left the Bureau of Labor and Industry in crisis. So, we get a do-over if we get rid of Val Hoyle in the 4th District, the ballot box this fall. But just be aware that these things have a cause and they have a solution. And it's by replacing the failed individuals that have been put in charge of these things and caused them. It's really, yeah, she was not only doing favors for LaMotta and taking cash from them, but they had at least a dozen outstanding cases at the time that she accepted the money from LaMotta, and were getting money sent to them from some illicit grant money for a nonprofit LaMotta controlled, while they had cases in front of Bowley. So it's extremely unethical, darn near criminal. But this is what I mean. Extremely unethical and darn near criminal pretty much is what you would want to put in front of the words Val Hoyle, no matter what it is. Because I can tell you, if you go and read that article that I just posted, or that press release, you'll see that there's quite a bit of other stuff that Val Hoyle on her rap sheet. So please take a look at that. Last two stories I'm just going to cover today because I think one is Multnomah County is actually going to cut 675 shelter beds. Why? They say they have a shortfall. But the shortfall appears to have been caused by overspending because they have multiple tax revenue sources coming in that have been instituted in the past several years, and they appear to have spent all of it. They also have been very slow to introduce these shelter beds, and of course, they have in almost no way reduce the number of people who need the shelter beds. In other words, getting them off drugs. Yes, the drug cartels are alive and well in Oregon. They're thrilled with Multnomah County because Multnomah County is ground zero for doing the stuff that keeps the cartels in business, such as never getting people off drugs. It's what they do. The FBI has sounded an alarm on something called nihilistic violent extremist groups. One of those types of groups would be Antifa. Any clear and consistent observation of that will show that. But also, they're saying that the law enforcement FBI is rooting out a network called the 764 network and that the arrests have gone up almost 500% from last year. The group was started by a 15-year-old by the name of Bradley Cadenhead in Texas, who was sentenced to 80 years in prison for creating and distributing child sex abuse materials. And this is named after his zip code prefix, and that he, with a friend he met playing the game Minecraft. But apparently he went off the deep end, and this is one of the groups that's actually trying to target young people to get involved in these networks. It's really sick. Makes you almost ill to read about it, but the Justice Department squarely has these groups on their radar. And they say that many of the victims of this stuff are young females, but they said the perpetrators themselves are often males under the age of 25 and come from all walks of life. They groom victims by first establishing a trust romantic relationship, but eventually manipulating and coercing them into engaging escalating harmful behavior designed to shame and isolate them. Thank you, Cash Patel. Yeah, 15 years old. The guy that founded it was 15 years old. Gee, where were his parents? You know? Who stepped in to make sure that their kid wasn't doing stuff like this? Well, I don't know. Last Last story I'm going to cover today. Well, there's been some election integrity stuff. There's been um, I'm just going to kind of run through them. So the House has passed the Republican Save Act. It's stuck in the Senate. It's unknown if there will be a vote on it because the Democrats are going to filibuster it. There's also an act called the Make America Great Again Act, which is a more extensive addressing of the um, problems with our election system. And I hope you get a chance to look at that because it's quite something. Big news at the end of last week, the Bureau of Land Management has opened public comment on a move by the Trump administration to open up nearly 2.5 million acres of highly productive timberlands in Western Oregon uh, to being harvested and better managed, both to generate revenue and to provide a supply of timber, but also to, more importantly, I should say, uh, um, also fund public services and prevent wildfires. It's going to do all of these things. And we're looking at a golden opportunity if Oregon steps in and takes advantage of it. So take a look at this. I'll see if I can get. So there's a press release by the Bureau of Land Management. I can share that here. This is a big deal. Western Oregon, especially. Guess whose district that is? I was just mentioning Val Hoyle. That's her district. Is quite a bit of that, Western Oregon. There's an Epic Times. Oh no, that's a different thing. That's about glyphosate, which is another topic for another day. But uh, yeah, Trump administration to release 2.5 million acres, and some group that is one of those groups that always sues to block this stuff if they can. Um, are just like it's the usual accusing people of clear cutting everything and saying that it's clear cutting or nothing, and it's not true. We could actually harvest a sustainable amount of timber and never run out of timber in our forests. That's how much there is, especially, and of course, the fuel load that's been built up. It's another factor here. So, um, let's see here. I want to just see if there was any last stories here that I could share. Well, so calls are growing for an Republican lawmaker to resign. There hasn't been much said about this from the state level, but in Wasco County, they're calling on Republicans there are calling on Greg Smith to resign, saying he's had too many ethical lapses. And this is a pretty safe Republican seat, as I understand it. So John Grant with the Wasco County committee has uh, they have announced this. There's also Morrow County, Sherman County Republican Central Committees, and you know um, they're asking for Republican leaders to step forward and deal with him. I don't know. I don't know that much about it. I know he's had a cloudy past in terms of some of the things he's dealt with and the revenue he's made. So take a look at that, share that with folks, and make sure they understand what's happening. We do have to keep our own house clean, even though the Democrats tower over us in terms of corruption and waste and frankly harm to our economy. So anyway, thanks everyone for joining me here tonight. No show tomorrow night because it will conflict with the State of the Union speech. It starts at 6 o'clock, so I encourage you to tune in to that. President Trump's State of the Union speech. One last thing I wanted to say. One of the best things I got to see um, is I got to watch some of the highlights of both the men's and women's hockey teams, and it was just special. The U.S. hockey team, and particularly the men's team. That the women, uh, they won in overtime against Canada. So did the men's team. It had been 46 years since the Miracle on Ice in 1980, which I love watching the last, minute or so of replay of Al Michaels' call, "Do You Believe in Miracles?" In 1980. Well, these guys did it again. And you know what? It got political because uh, these guys just are so proudly American. They've been attacked by the left all over the media. And I got to say, they were all talking about how proud they are to be Americans today. And then down in the locker room, a huge fan of hockey and plays actually in adult league is FBI Director Kash Patel. He was there uh, as a dignitary visiting the locker room of the U.S. team after they won, and he put President Trump on the phone to congratulate them. And President Trump apparently has invited them to the State of the Union speech. And I don't know, maybe he's invited the women too. It'd be great. We might see them tomorrow night. Let's see what the Democrats do, because I think that the Democrats, if they've completely lost it, then there will be some that don't applaud the U.S. And some of the Democrats won't even be there tomorrow night. But I want you to have a look at this wonderful video of Jack Hughes, the guy who scored the winning goal, who sacrificed part of his front teeth. He got hit in the teeth during the game by a stick, and he just kept playing. He's still got a smile on his face, and he's talking about, this is what it is. This is what real dedication, this is what it takes to succeed. You get hit in the face with a hockey stick, you keep smiling, you score the winning goal. What a great American story, and congratulations to those teams for winning the gold medal. Anyway, thanks everyone. Take a look at that video. There's many others, and miracles can still happen. You just have to believe in it. Have a great night, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Captive Audience. That'll probably be next